Greetings one and all. Super Wednesdays here, 16th day of the month of Kislev in the holy city of Shechem, Elon Moreh, my house. Right. Once again, I want to mention, as always, these classes are for the sake of heaven, to improve ourselves. Even one little step is a big step in our times. Once again, to thank our tremendous cameramen today we have Elchanan Gilboa from Elon Moreh Shechem, former student of mine, excellent student of course. We have Tzvi, our regular cameraman who's up north on the Lebanese border. We give a hug to our cameraman Tzvi. We give big hugs to our channel sponsor Mike, who no rest, no vacation for Mike. He goes straight forward, tremendous sacrifice. It's an honor to be on his channel. He's in the south of Israel. And of course, last but not least, we have Tomer Devora, who helps us always, all these years, many years, to get out the message. Once again, all of you are messengers. Get out the message. We're restricted. We are being restricted by YouTube to get out the message to more people. You can do it. So get out there, subscribe, notifications, share, you name it. Okay. Today's class, America, Europe, a second Holocaust? Question mark. I was listening to a Torah class. It was called A Wake-Up Call. I said, oh, this is for me. A wake-up call. The rabbi was discussing the situation. He was speaking in front of yeshiva students, older yeshiva students. And here's a few gems in his lesson that I jotted down. People today do not see the dark clouds approaching. So far, so good. A person watching a movie on a plane is totally immersed in the flicks. Turbulence hits. He does not recognize the danger. Someone has to tear off his headphones and scream, "Put on your seatbelt." Hashem is trying to get our attention. So far, this is great. And then, a famous head of a yeshiva in America during the Iraqi Gulf War in 1991 told his students, stop listening to the news, turn it off. And the rabbi concluded in his wake-up call, what's the only suggestion? What's the only solution? What can save us? Torah study, tefillah, praying, and good deeds. The obvious question is to this dear rabbi, in Europe, in World War II, almost 80 years ago, did they have Torah learning? Did they have prayers? Did they have good deeds? I imagine that they had many. I could understand the Jews 80 years ago. There was no precedent to believe that such a thing on such a level can happen. What is our excuse in 5784, 2023? What is our excuse? We've seen it happen. They did not have a precedent. I understand them. Will turning off the news, will turning off the messengers save American and European Jewry? I don't think so. Perhaps before one goes outside in a bathing suit, it's worthwhile to turn on the news and listen to the forecast. There might be a snow blizzard coming your way, and you might not want to catch pneumonia. I'll tell you, totally different outlook. 40 years ago, folks, I remember it like today. I was in the Sinai Desert. Today, unfortunately, it's in Egypt. I learned in the city of Yamit. The head of the yeshiva, Rabbi Yaakov Ariel, got up one afternoon and he hit the table and he said, I've noticed in the last couple of days, many students are missing from the study hall. And I asked around, I investigated, why is that? And the answer I received was people were listening to the news. I want to tell you, Rabbi Ariel said, 40 years ago, it's still in me. It is very important to listen to the news, to know what is happening with the Jewish people. However, that can be done in 15 or 20 minutes. Beyond that, we are wasting time, and it's no longer a mitzvah. It's no longer a good deed. That was the eternal words of our Rosh Yeshiva, the head of our yeshiva. Amazing. More so, our Rabbi Meir Kahana, every Saturday night when he was in Israel, he would come down to the yeshiva and he had a class, how to learn reading the newspaper. He would take an article from the newspaper and turn it into a Torah class. What is the Jewish view? What is the Torah view on this news item? Bringing the Torah into real life. I prefer the directives of Rabbi Yaakov Ariel. It's important to know what is happening with the Jewish people. And Rabbi Kahana, learning, understanding how to read news, how to read the newspaper. And not ignoring the messengers and thinking by turning it off, we've turned off our problems. It's important to increase Torah learning, to pray, increase good deeds. Agreed 100%. But with that, a person has to be aware of what is going on. Okay, first, we're looking at the headlines. We're going to have the following categories. Headlines by important people. What are they saying about anti-Semitism? We will have statistics on anti-Semitism right now. We will have the projection of the Muslim community in the United States in the next 25 years compared to the Jewish community. We will have a look at a recent poll, the attitude towards democracy of Americans and violence, a very important poll, and we'll have various cases of anti-Semitism. Okay, so let's start out. Once again, not my words. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, quote, anti-Semitism is reaching historical levels in the United States. Historical levels. 2. Rabbi Menachem Margolin, chairman and founder of the European Jewish Association, the EJA. The scale today is totally and completely different The scale today of anti-Semitism, totally different from what we have been accustomed to. Levi Solomon, who has been documenting anti-Semitism in Berlin for 25 years, the October 7th massacre marked a turning point. There are hardly any taboos left. Those are some of the headlines in the world media. Statistics. Check these out. There is a 1,180% surge in global anti-Semitic incidents. A third of the events are occurring in the United States, mostly in highly populated Jewish areas like New York, California, Chicago, and Florida. There is a 330% increase in violent anti-Semitic events. Violent anti-Semitic events. There is a 128% rise in desecration of Jewish sites. There is a 660% increase in harassment against Jews. There is a 300% increase in threats against the Jewish people. This statistical report also brought the following information down. It emphasized, this report, the alarming use of social media such as 4chan, BitChute, Stormfront, 8kun, K-U-N. Their anti-Semitic content on the internet has increased by 1,200%. This content on the net has included calls for violence against Israel, Zionists, and Jews. 20% of Jewish students polled experienced hate and violence on campus. 87% of Jews questioned felt a decrease of personal security, increased feelings of anger, anxiety, and shock. Many indicated a decline in their willingness to display their Jewish identity. And we ain't finished. There was a 1,600% surge in the hashtag Hitler was right. There was also an increase in posts repeating the age-old anti-Semitic claim that Jews killed Jesus. 3, an increase in dehumanizing content that refers to Jews as various animals, diseases, and parasites. Conspiracy theories about Jews controlling global politics. There was also a tremendous surge in the anti-Semitic hashtag, the noticing. The noticing is a call for the public to wake up to the truth. The truth in this case being that the idea that the Jewish people have infiltrated global leadership positions in order to achieve world domination. Okay, the noticing. Have you been noticing? Okay, those are the statistics. Our future leaders, community leaders, political leaders from the college campuses, let's hear where they're holding. Ivy League schools are becoming breeding grounds for extremism and intolerance. Jewish schools turning to colleges. Do not recruit our students unless you can guarantee their safety. We're going to look at some of these Ivy League anti-Semitic campuses. Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Columbia are the next generation of politicians. Okay, let's look at some of them. We're going to start with Columbia University. Astonishing. astounding, awesome, incredible were some of the adjectives used by Columbia University Professor Joseph Massad to describe the rape and murder rampage by Hamas terrorists in southern Israel on October 7th. Massad's support for Islamist terrorism and indiscriminate violence against Jews is disturbing. Even more disturbing, though, is Columbia University's leadership refusal to take any action against or even to condemn this academic. Jewish students at Columbia University in New York City released a statement saying that they are being intimidated on campus, and the university is doing absolutely nothing about it. Harvard University, I hope my accent, Harvard University, hope my Boston accent is okay. Just last month, Harvard refused to take action against Harvard Kennedy School professor Marshall Gans, who was found to have discriminated against Israeli students, subjecting them to anti-Israel and anti-Semitic bias. Cornell University. Classes have to be canceled at Cornell University as 21-year-old computer science student Datrick Day was arrested after he posted several violent threats directed at Jewish classmates on a Cornell student forum. D appeared in federal court earlier after he logged onto the forum using the screen name Hamas and threatened to slit the throats of the Jewish people and described them as rats and pigs. In one post of D, he warned he was going to shoot up 104 West in reference to a dining hall that mostly caters to Jewish students and is next to the Cornell Jewish Center. Oxford. Trevor Stern, a master's student at the university and also president of the Oxford Jewish Society, put up a mezuzah, a rolled scroll with various biblical verses on his door. The next morning, it was ripped off. University of Pennsylvania. 2 weeks before Hamas's barbaric rampage through southern Israel communities resulted in the biggest loss of Jewish lives in one day since the Holocaust, the University of Pennsylvania was embroiled in an anti-Semitism scandal when notorious Jew-hating musician Roger Waters, might be familiar to you, was invited to speak on campus. Waters, who is best known as a founding member of the rock band Pink Floyd. All in all, it's just another brick in the wall. And for goose-stepping on stage while dressed as a Nazi, was asked to address attendees at the Palestine Right Literature Festival. Next, Muslim influence on America and its political leaders. We talked about the next generation of political leaders on the campuses. Now we have the Muslim community. In North America, listen to this closely. In North America, the Jewish population is projected to decline both in total numbers from 6 million in 2010 to 5.9 million in 2050. And as a share of the region's population, decreasing from 1.8% in 2010 to 1.4% in 2050, 25 years from now. Muslims are projected to become the second largest religious group in the U.S. by 2040, amid continued growth fueled by high fertility rates and immigration, according to new estimates by the Pew Research Center. By 2050, Muslims are expected to constitute 2.1% of the total U.S. population. That is 8.1 million Muslims, according to the Pew study. As the Muslim population increases, the U.S. will have to come to terms, and I'll add this, the Jews, with the reality that Islam is an important part of the country's fabric, said Isham Bagabi, an associate professor of Islamic studies at the University of Kentucky and a member of the advisory board of Pew. Pew's 2017 survey on Muslim Americans. Another key driver of growth amongst Muslim Americans is higher fertility rates, in part due to the group's youth. Pew's 2017 survey found that 35% of respondents were ages 18 to 29. Muslims tend to be fairly young population, both globally and in the United States. So most of the women still have childbearing years ahead of them, Mohammed said. Folks, do we understand what the direction? A decline in the Jewish population, a decline in influence. It's already hitting home. We could talk here for a couple of hours. Today in the Biden administration, all these pro-Hamas individuals giving over information, advisors to Biden. It's just going to grow. The Jewish influence going down. Add that with anti-Semitism and add the Muslim growth. We are heading, God forbid, for a second Holocaust. Belief in democracy. An amazing poll in Miami Herald 2 months ago. It was reported. Large portions of Americans, Democrats and Republicans, doubt democracy and view violence as acceptable. I'm going to read that again. Large portions of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, doubt democracy and view violence as acceptable. This is another nail in the coffin, God forbid, of the Jewish community in the United States. A few incidents. An Arizona man has been arrested after allegedly threatening to execute a rabbi and other Jewish people in a disturbing email. The FBI took in Jeffrey Mindak, 47, into custody on Saturday after learning about the message he sent to the leader of a synagogue in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you do not use your influence to right this wrong, I will execute you and every other Jew I can find tonight at midnight of your Sabbath, he wrote, according to federal officials. Another news item, a Jewish man has died a day after he was injured in a violent clash at a dueling pro-Israel and pro-Palestine rallies, cops said. Paul Kessler, 69, suffered a fatal wound to the head at a demonstration in California, and his death has been ruled a homicide. On Tuesday, November 7th, Ventura County Sheriff James Fryhoff said in a news conference that a suspect had been identified. His name is Loe Abdel Fattah Al-Najah, 50, of Moore Park, was charged with involuntary manslaughter on November 16th. Elsewhere, in one of many, many incidents, a Beverly Hills home of a Holocaust survivor was dubbed with anti-Semitic graffiti reading F Jews. Video appeared. Michigan rally cheers Hamas attack. Imams vow to burn Israel until its demise. Hundreds turn out in Dearborn to celebrate attacks on the occupier Israel. Sydney Opera. Yes, the Sydney Opera House. Israel-Palestine protest. Anger as Jews are told to stay home, dragged away from the protest, while radical Muslims shout vile anti-Semitic comments, throw flares and chant, gas the Jews. About 2,000 people were at that march at the Sydney Opera House. Chants of F the Jews and Allah Akbar rang out. Folks, last week we read in the portion of Vayetze in Genesis, read an amazing line. Jacob, who has been at the White House, the house of Laban, so to speak, pun intended. He had been there for 20 years. He tells his family, we're leaving. Why? He tells his wives, Rachel and Leah, I look at your father's face, and his face has changed from the last 20 years that I'm accustomed to looking at him. His facial expression has changed. Something has changed. It is time to leave. How great is Jacob? How great of a man is Jacob? He's able to tell at an early stage that times are a-changing by looking at the expression, the facial expression of his father-in-law, Lavan. And we in America, we in Europe, are we blind? Facial expression was enough to get the hell out of his father-in-law's community, land, house, country, to get the hell out of there. We have been receiving in 2021 the largest amount of anti-Semitism ever since it's been recorded. In 2022, it broke the record of 2021. What will we say in 2023? What have we been witnessing the last 6 weeks? Not facial expressions, much, much more. Such a great person like Jacob was Zev Jabotinsky. During the 1930s, Jabotinsky was deeply concerned with the situation of the Jewish communities in Eastern Europe. In 1936, Jabotinsky prepared the evacuation plan, which called for the evacuation of entire Jewish communities in Poland, Hungary, and Romania to Palestine. The same year he toured Eastern Europe, 1936. He met in Hungary with Admiral Miklos Horthy and Prime Minister George Tatarusko of Romania to discuss his evacuation plan. The plan gained the approval of all three governments, but caused considerable controversy within the Jewish community of Poland on the grounds that it played into the hands of the anti-Semites. Can you believe this? Jabotinsky went around running up and down in Europe. And who stood against him? Jews, Jewish organizations. We have a repeat in history. The World Zionist Organization chairman, Chaim Weizmann, one of the darlings of the Jewish people, Chaim Weizmann, dismissed the warnings of Zev Jabotinsky. 2 years later, in 1938, Jabotinsky stated in a speech that Polish Jews were living on the edge of a volcano. He warned of a wave of pogroms that would happen soon in Poland. Catastrophe is approaching. I see a terrible picture. The volcano that will soon spew out its flames of extermination. Jabotinsky went on to warn Jews in Europe that they should leave for Palestine as soon as possible. the saintly Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Meir Kagan, passed away in September 1933. In his commentary on the Torah, on this week's portion, Vayishlach 32, chapter 32, verse 9. Let me read the words, the commentary. In 1933, before the passing away of the Chafetz Chaim. A little background here. In the year 1933, may his name be released, Hitler was voted in on January 30th to be chairman of Germany. The Chafetz Chaim passed away at the end of September, 8 months. One of the Chafetz Chaim's Rosh Yeshivas, head of his institution, approached the saintly Chafetz Chaim, and he said, "What will be, Rabbi, what will be with world Jewry in Germany and Poland? Hitler has declared his intention to destroy them." The Chafetz Chaim replied, "That will never happen. As it says in this week's portion, in his battle, Jacob's battle against Esau, there will be a remnant that survives." This head of one of the institutions of the Chafetz Chaim, the Rosh Yeshiva, continued, "What will be if Hitler succeeds in destroying European Jewry? Who will be the remnant?" Chafetz Chaim replied, based on a verse in the prophet of Avadia, "On Mount Zion will be the refuge." 1933. The words, trembling words of the Chafetz Chaim. Who listened? The Holy Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, when the Gra would quote this verse we just mentioned, he would become terrified, because this verse means that the Jewish people will come to the land of Israel as refugees, not as free people. They will be forced to come as refugees. This verse terrified. This is written in Kol HaTor, chapter 5. The Meshech Chochmah in 1927 passed away. 1927, at the end of Leviticus, he writes, "The Jew will begin believing Berlin is Jerusalem, and then will come a tremendous wind to uproot him from his place." Check it out. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 44. The Jew will begin believing Berlin is Jerusalem. The amazing Rabbi Eliezer Chaim of Scalia, based on the Talmud, Bava Batra tractate, page 73, side A. There's an allegory there of Rabbi Bar Chana. We mentioned this last week. He was out sailing and he saw an island, what he thought was an island. It was really a whale, a gigantic whale. On the whale were layers of sand. On the sand were layers of vegetation. He went, put his boat next to the island, docked it, anchored it. And he went onto the island, he began to cook, he began to bake. And all of a sudden, the whale awoken from the heat and started to shake and bake, or bake and shake. And then Rabbi Barchana quickly jumped back into the boat, which was anchored right next to the island. And if not for that fact, he would have drowned. Listen to his words. In the late 1800s, Rabbi Eliezer Chaim Scalia, he explained this allegory. This is a message, he said, in the late 1800s. This is a message to European Jews. They think that they have found a home in Europe. This is an illusion, and it will soon be shattered. Jews, you must leave Europe. And sure enough, in 1892, Rabbi Eliezer Chaim Scalia and his family left for America. Rabbi Eliezer said, the boat that is anchored next to the island, this is America, the island which is shaking and baking. This is an illusion. It's not an island, it's shaking. It will bring our destruction. This is Europe. The boat is America. That is safe. Folks, it is clear to me as day that if we had such a person like Rabbi Eliezer Chaim Scalia today, he would tell us the same Talmud track in Bava Batra with Rabbi Barchana and the whale and the sand and the vegetation. And he would tell us, no, today the whale is Europe. Today the whale is America for the Jews. The boat is the land of Israel. The Savior, the safety, the way to safety is the land of Israel. I have no doubt. He saw this in 1892. And the beat goes on. In the book Yalkut Eliezer, Volume 3, page 157, a descendant of the Khatam Sofer brings down this allegory in Bava Batra, and he adds a few details. Listen to his details. The Jew becomes comfortable in this new country. Assimilation kicks in. There comes a time when this assimilation reaches a boiling point. The once acceptance of the Jew turns into hatred as they burn, the nations burn with jealousy. This is an amazing take on this allegory of Rabbi Barchana. The Jews become complacent. Assimilation reaches a boiling point. The Jews being accepted for so many years, the acceptance turns into a hatred. And we still continue to sleep. The Shlach HaKadosh writes, my heart has always burnt when I would see Jews building permanent homes in the lands of the impure. They build as if they and their kids and grandkids and even further generations will continue living here in these impure lands. They seem to have taken off their mind, take the redemption off of their mind. Hesech dat. We have taken redemption. We have come comfortable. We are building homes, institutions for generations to come. Rabbi Yehuda Alkali turned to the Jews of his time. Leave your places of residence to go to the land of Israel. All material efforts in the exile are in vain. The famous Rabbi Meir Shapiro, who began the learning of the daily page, there is no confidence in what we are building here outside of Israel. Listen to this. A contemporary head of a yeshiva in Muncie, and who moved later to head a yeshiva in the land of Israel. He tells an amazing story. When he was outside the land of Israel, they were building a yeshiva. And he used various pillars which were guaranteed for up to 80 years. A friend of the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the seminary, came to him and advised to order pillars from Canada, which would last 300 years. Rabbi Wine turned to this supporter of the yeshiva and was shocked. 300 years? Who is sticking around here for 300 years? And he ended, Rabbi Dov Wine. We believe that we are here for good outside the land of Israel. Folks, if we look in the mirror, we look at reality, we have to understand that it's been decades of a tremendous descent of America in all facets of life. If we're talking about politically, economically, strategically, militarily, socially, morally, in all facets of life, America has been for some decades on a tremendous descent towards the bottom. Today, in approximately a month from now, there is this new union that has been created called BRICS. Stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They, especially China, they were able to make peace with eternal enemies such as Iraq and Iran and bring them in to their BRICS organization. They were able to mediate a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia and Iran. We're talking about the three biggest oil manufacturers in the world: Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. On January 1st, 2024, they will be officially invited. They will be official members. They've already been invited. Official members of the BRICS. Do we understand what this means? For all the years America has enjoyed that the dollar is backed by oil. The Saudis are only allowed to sell and deal with oil in dollars of America. But the BRICS organization, they are going to begin with a different currency. Once that happens, it's the collapse of America. Look it up, check it out. This is an amazing event. It's a month away, January 1st, 2024. Think about this Elon Musk. He has 163 million followers and his anti-Semitic comments. Think about Candace Owens going at Ben Shapiro. Real popular figures, celebrities, big people backing them. Folks, remember, We just read it last week. Jacob saw, after 20 years, not 200 years in America, Jacob saw the face of his father-in-law was no longer the same as it used to be. And he told his family, we're leaving. He picked up, left the country, came back to the land of Israel. It is true that Israel suffered 6 weeks ago a tremendous massacre. 1,400 Jews were murdered. 3,500 Jews were injured. Captives, hostages. True. However, Israel represents God's land. And don't forget, though it is awful, it is terrible, we do not minimize it. What could have been. Hashem's mercy for the land of Israel, for the people of Israel, is immense. There was supposed to be a combined attack from the north, south, east, west, from Iraq, from Syria, from Yemen, from Lebanon, from Hamas, which would have finished Israel in 3 days. It's true. It was a massacre. It's awful. It's horrible. There's no words. It was a Holocaust. However, we see till this very moment the tremendous mercy that God has on the land of Israel. We're talking about the land that God supervises from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We're talking about God's palace. We're talking about the Holy Land. It's a commandment to live here. The great things. You don't have to come here because of the bad. Okay? The bad should be a catalyst. But there are so many great reasons. The holy, all of our prayers are from here, from the land of Israel. This is where they ascend. And we're right here. We're in the best place. We're the most secure place. Anywhere. Israel, the land of Israel is the eye of the storm. It's the safest place. It's the eye of the storm. So, even though we received a tremendous beating, it is very, very clear that this is just adding a little bit like Pharaoh. Did Pharaoh have free will? Yes. Rabbi Dessler says an amazing idea. God had to harden his heart in order to be free will. Why? Because Pharaoh was an eyewitness to tremendous miracles. He didn't have any free choice. He saw these miracles. So in order to enable him to have free choice, Hashem had to harden his heart. God had to harden his heart. Same thing here. God gives us a massacre in order to harden our hearts, to say, you see, the land of Israel is not safe. Let me tell you, folks. Let me tell you. There's such a difference, a world of difference between the higher echelon, the leaders, generals, you name it, the government, and the Jewish people. There is no place in the world that I feel more secure than the land of Israel. We have tremendous yeshiva people, rabbis, who are out there with belief in God, and that are soldiers, and that are fighting in the name of God. They're going out to battle in the name of Hashem. You have settlements, all religious people, all yeshiva people, with the name of God. Not out of haughtiness, God forbid, with the name of God going out. This is the safest place to be. So, I bless all of us that listen to this class a couple of times. If you have kids, influence them. If you can't go, everyone could go. But influence the next generation. It's easier when you're younger. It's easier when you're retired. Make that move, because we are on the cusp of the coming of Mashiach. Till next week.